Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, and thanks so much for joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. I'm Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and today I'm joined by Jules Dain. Jules, obviously, thank you so much for having you. I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm so glad to have you here to share.
As am I. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, so tell us all about you and why you do what you do.
I remember being on my grandparents' fence in the cemetery in Charleston, South Carolina, and I remember sitting there watching the grave diggers work. It was like a Sunday. All my friends were playing, and I was riveted by what these people were doing. And I stayed there probably about an hour. All my friends had left. And I went in and I asked my mom, like, what is this? What is this about? My mom would not answer my question. We didn't talk about death. We didn't talk about dying. So then it became this seed of curiosity that was planted in my mind. And that really sparked that desire. I think I was 9 or 10 to learn more about death and dying and creating that space for people to share about that through grief and loss. And when I was about 13, my mom, I was a very curious child. She's like, I'm sending you to live with your dad in California. And I did. I went to live with my dad in California. My dad, he worked all the time. And I remember going over to neighbors' houses to try and find a semblance of a family. What was a family? What did that look like? Because I didn't know. And I remember my dad wouldn't come home until late at night. And I remember I had a milk jug of coins and I would spill it out and I would count it thinking, okay, if my dad doesn't come home, thinking my dad was possibly in an accident or something, will I have enough money to survive? I'm like 13 at this time. And that really started me being more of a wandering soul, of not feeling grounded in my life, and also wanting to help others. I've always been an empath and a giver.
What brought you to, I mean, obviously, I know a little bit about your journey because I know you, but so going from that into the taboo world of death and dying, right? That people don't talk about. It's not a dinner conversation. I mean, it's getting better, much like money, right? People didn't talk about that either. But what brought you to the point of now doing what you're doing and really being there as people are, in that stage and in that season of their life?
I really found the need working as a mental health professional during COVID. I began to feel this intense grief that people were having. They were losing people unexpectedly without any warning. And I really felt this call to open up and start talking to people about what loss looks like, about what their own wishes are. What do they want to do with their remains? Do they have a living will? What songs do they want played at their funeral? I really felt the call to talk about this and hold space for such a taboo subject around death and dying. So it really started at the beginning of COVID. It just caught fire.
And ironically, right, this is something, whether we want to address it now or, put our head in the sand. And again, whatever your thought process as a journey is, that's your own, right? No judgment on that. But it's something we all go through. It's a stage of life we all go through. When you're talking kind of about what you do, are you helping the folks in transitioning from, living into not living, or are you helping the folks that are left over also to, kind of pick up the pieces of losing their loved one? What does that look like?
So interestingly enough, in November 2019, I actually obtained my death end of life doula certificate, went through the training, and as COVID started, I was about to begin my internship. So I have not started that part of sitting bedside. However, I have been working with clients in my professional life and also in my side business, holding space for those individuals to open up and talk about death and dying and to feel those emotions and walk with them on that path. And it's really, I feel honored that people trust me, that they can open up and feel safe to talk about their own mortality. And I think it just opens so many doors for people to realize that this is an unknown that we can turn into a bit of a known. They
Yeah.
have, I like to say grief is unscripted, and it really is.
That's a beautiful way of saying it. And everybody's journey navigating that is so different, right? Like there's no right or wrong to that. It's just, what's your personal journey?
Yes, very much so.
Um, it's been a while, but I have talked to an author who wrote specifically. She was a hospice nurse, and she was kind of sharing her stories of like how people were navigating, and obviously very, very different. Each person was very different of what they navigated and what they saw, and seeing family members that have already passed, with them, and really kind of talking through that. And other than like you and, our conversations that we've had, those are the only times I've ever heard anybody openly talk about that.
It's very taboo. I was recently, I think last year at a zoo, and I overheard a parent telling one of their children that one of the animals had died. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for just not sugarcoating it and telling the child the truth. And I want to hear more of that. I want to hear more of the open conversation around death and dying and grief and loss.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Well, that's a big job for sure, but a very needed job as well.
Yes. I'm very grateful to be able to do this, to hold space for those walking that path.
Yeah. So you've heard the podcast. So another thing we talk through here is also another taboo subject, right? Not death and dying, but money, which is also for many people not something that they're comfortable having conversations with. So for a money memory, I know you shared a little bit of a money memory, but what's a money memory that you had as a younger person or as a kid that helped mold your relationship to money now as an adult?
I was not educated on money. I remember my dad, we pulled into the driveway, and in that moment, he wanted to tell me how much he made per year. I don't remember why. He gave me a number, and he also told me, you can't tell anybody this.
Mm,
I don't remember the amount or what it meant or why I couldn't tell anybody. That is one of my biggest memories around money that I think really led me to become what I call an under earner because I didn't understand what money was, what you did with it, how you could save it, how you could invest it. I had no clue at all what that meant. And that it was a secret. Money became a secret to me. I didn't understand at all what it was.
So then did you take that as like not talking about it means that you can't talk about any aspect of it in your own world as well?
Exactly. I couldn't talk about it. All I knew is that from a very young age, I was always working, either selling door to door newspapers or babysitting or doing one, two, three jobs, making money and not knowing what to do with the money. It became a secret. I didn't understand what money was until actually recently when I really kind of hit a rock bottom around finances.
How, for you, if you don't mind me asking, so that was a money memory, probably not serving you as well as it could be. How have you changed the narrative in that in your own world? And obviously still doing it, right? Everybody's a work in progress, I feel like, but how have you changed the narrative to better serve you and what you want to do?
I really began reaching out for help and being honest with myself and with others around me. Part of being a mental health professional, I also started talking with my clients, a lot of them women, about their own financial lack of what is money. And it was amazing to see how many women had the same kind of story that I did, that money was something to be ashamed of, or they didn't know what to do with money, or they hid money from their family. And so really bringing it out in the open and making it less taboo has helped me realize I don't want to be that person that struggles anymore.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. We, both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717-0001. We'd be honored to help.
And now, back to the podcast.
I want to move forward, and it's very powerful.
That's huge. And again, huge that you're able to kind of share your own journey with others so they can learn from it. I think that's where the magic happens behind the scenes.
Yes, I agree. Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And talking about it, right? Truly talking about it, having those conversations. That's, one of the reasons I started this podcast. I was hearing the common thread from people about money memories, and everybody had one, no matter what walk of life they were in, no matter where they lived, no matter what their backgrounds were, how they grew up, everybody has a money memory. And it's fascinating to me because that really molded their relationship to where they are as an adult. Have some people changed the narrative? Yes. Have other people kind of held on to it and that's their money memory and they're just not at that place in their journey to kind of change gears? Sure. I mean, everybody's journey is different, but I think having the conversations, much like with you and Death and Dying, having the conversations about money, bringing it to the table just shines light on it so we can, figure out, are you being best served by what you believe? Are there other, things out there? Is money a different energy that doesn't have to have that negative connotation to it? Let's talk about it. So that's why we're here for sure.
I really like that you said bringing money to the table, because I think so often, and I found this with women, we hide it. We feel ashamed. We don't know how to talk about it. It becomes taboo. And once we're empowered to talk about money, that's where the magic happens, and that's where the honesty comes out. And it really works to break down those stereotypes. And it's just a beautiful thing that happens.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I found too is there's an element with not all women, but many women of not feeling worthy of money for whatever reason that is, or whatever, seed was planted in them that began to bloom. There's definitely a level of not feeling worthy. And I feel like for me, singing it from the rooftops, like everybody deserves a seat at the table of their own financial, world by all means. Everyone does, no matter what walk of life you're in, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have amassed a, ton of money on the sidelines, everybody's worthy for a seat at the table for sure.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm so grateful that you're doing this and making that message known, because it definitely brought a lot of comfort to me. And I can only imagine how much comfort it's brought to others, that I am worthy of this journey. I don't have to hide anymore.
Yeah, no, that's huge. So the other thing we talk through here are financial infidelities, which that's a big word. That's a big word, and that's a heavy word for a lot of people. What is a financial infidelity that you've either experienced or that you witnessed that you think others could learn from?
I recently came to the conclusion that I'm an under earner, meaning that again, as I said earlier, worked 2, 3 jobs without getting paid what I was worth. Even when I was doing my own business, I would want to tend to give away my services. Oh, we can, and being an under earner has not served me. And so I think that's one of my biggest financial infidelities. And my youngest daughter actually brought that to my attention. She said, Mom, I know you love this gypsy lifestyle. You like to go here, go there. You need to settle down. You need to get a job that pays you what you're worth. Coming from she was 24 at the time, coming from the mouth of my 24-year-old daughter, that hit home. That was a game changer. And that was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Tell me what you felt in that moment if you're open to sharing.
Shame,
Mm.
so much shame. Like, what had I done? And in the next moment, the power to change it, the power to make decisions, to make that tide turn around, to make my daughters proud of me. And also, I want to leave them something. As someone who works in death and dying, I want to leave them something. And it was such a powerful moment. And I remember just telling her over and over again, thank you. Thank you for speaking your truth to your mom, that I had raised her, that she could tell me that she could be honest with me. And it's really resonated with me since then as I moved forward in this process of learning more about money.
That's a huge self-realization for a 24-year-old.
Yes. My daughters, I'm very proud of their financial stability and how they taught me about money.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So as we begin to kind of wrap the conversation, one thing I like to ask is, what are tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money differently in your own household?
I am a big vintage shopper. I love going to the vintage stores I like to find things that have repurposed value. At the moment, however, what I'm doing is spending fast, and that entails me really looking at what I'm spending, writing everything down, allowing myself to take myself on 2 dates a month with a budget of $20 per date. Otherwise, just really looking at what I'm spending my money, and am I making impulse purchases? And if I ask myself that, is this an impulse? I check in with myself and I walk away from it. Really learning that I don't have to have it today, that long game is where it's at. That beginning to save. One of my biggest goals is buying my own home in the next 2 or 3 years. So really working with that, like, okay, yes, it would feel great if I came home with those shoes from the thrift store. However, are those shoes going to equate to a house in 2 or 3 years? That's one of the things I'm really working on, is just asking myself, do I need it now, or do I that long game, immediate or long-term satisfaction and gratification?
Yeah, and having that honest communication with yourself, right?
Yes. And also getting a job that I'm worth, the money, that's a big one with me, getting a job that pays what I'm worth. That's another thing that I'm really putting out there, that I'm worth it. I'm worth getting paid more. So working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, and back to that worthiness, right? You deserve a seat at the table. Everyone deserves a seat at the table for their own, financial future.
Yes, exactly.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much for sharing and spending some time with us today. And those of you listening and or watching, thank you for joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. And we hope you'll join us on our next episode.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.